perhaps then, in this Nicki Minaj's career, yes, she still retained the importance of male opinions, but she's also knowingly challenged those opinions and walked away from the approval of men for the sake of pursuing her sound. And even though she's less willing to do that, you can still see, like, there are men in hip-hop, there are hip-hop gatekeepers like RZA who do appreciate and value that versatility. So maybe it's not that Nicki Minaj is restricted by male opinions, or that women rappers have ever been restricted by male opinions, but maybe it's that the male opinions themselves needed to develop in order to better appreciate these women and their talent. And I think that's the biggest impact of Nicki's career. Hi guys, this is Blessing Makosha. Welcome back to No Ghostwriter. Follow no_ghostwriter on Twitter and Instagram for 24/7 rap and hip hop talk. And make sure that you follow us on TikTok as well as No Ghostwriter, where we'll also be posting daily content and breakdowns, lyric reviews and reactions and so on for you. And if you haven't already, check out our blog, noghostwriter.com, and sign up to our mailing list. We post new articles every Friday on a range of rap and hip hop topics, and it's a real cool growing space on the internet where we're trying to bring back high quality hip hop blogging, so make sure that you check that out. And as always, we're looking for writers, so if you're interested in writing for us, then check the links in the description below. We are always taking pictures. We always want new writers who are passionate about rap and hip hop and lyrics, and support our mission on bringing rap onto the emphasis of bars, and no more clout chasing, no more misogynoir, just the skill of writing and rapping bars. So if you're interested in writing for us and you want to check out our blog, then do that. Make sure also that you subscribe to the No Ghostwriter Patreon. Our Patreon is how we are able to support ourselves and also provide you with exclusive content, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you on our Patreon.
I am who I am because I am who I am. You see, I don't have to go in a room with a bunch of men
don't cut this off.
to create my sound, my image, my anything. I am who I am. Take it or fucking leave it. But I put in the motherfucking work. I put in the work.
Queen.
Good night.
When Nicki Minaj went off on Joe Budden on his podcast, it was funny, but it was also really important. And that's because it raised a lot of interesting questions, particularly why was this such an important point for Nicki Minaj to stress when talking about her career. Another question that led me to think about is, why do women in hip hop struggle so much with men controlling their careers, to the point that Nicki would have to make this point so saliently on Joe Budden's podcast? And the other thing that it raised is, with Nicki championing being an independent artist, have the female rappers following her career Pinkprint been similarly liberated, or are they struggling with the same things that Nicki was rebelling against? So all of these questions and more are what I want to look at in today's video. So in this video, I want to look at three main things. So first of all, I want to look at historical examples of female rappers having their careers controlled by men and the challenges that that's brought them. I also wanted to look at Nicki Minaj and how her career in the timeline of female rappers challenged these norms. And then I wanted to look at the new generation of female rappers and ask if the issue of men controlling female rappers' careers has persisted in 2021, you know, the current era. So I'm really looking forward to it. And if you are interested in watching that, then stick around and keep watching this video. Let's get into it. So first of all, let's look at historical examples of female rappers having their careers controlled by men. And I'm ready to pull out my source for a lot of this video and a lot of the background that I've gotten into this. And this is a fantastic book by Clover Hope, who is a scholar and academic, and she wrote this book called The Mother Lode, 100 Women Who Made Hip Hop. I really recommend you check this book out. Click the link in my description for my Amazon affiliate link, or you can purchase it directly. But I did talk about this book on our live stream on female rappers and ghostwriters, and this book is really inspiring me. I take time every day to read it. And the reason I think it's so important is because it is as complete a history, an account of the legacy of female rap as we're gonna get. There are in here, you know, so many female rappers, from MC Sha Rock, Wanda D, and the first ladies of hip hop, all the way to Nicki, Azealia, Cardi in the future. So it's a real comprehensive book and has really been helping me build my historical knowledge of female hip hop. So this is a strong recommendation for you to check this book out. And so this is what we're going to be looking at today when we are having this discussion. Our first historical example, and this isn't necessarily in chronological order, it's more in issues order. So I wanted to look at Lady of Rage and how her experiences in the 90s showed the ways in which men controlled female rappers' careers at that time. So a brief biography of Lady of Rage is in order. So according to our trusty friend Wikipedia, Robin Yvette Allen, known professionally as the Lady of Rage, is an American rapper, singer, and actress, best known for her collaborations with several Death Row Records artists, including Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg on the seminal albums The Chronic and Doggy Style. The Lady of Rage has been described as one of the most skillful female MCs with a mastery of flow and hardcore lyrics. So I think that's a great summary of her, definitely accords with what I read about her in this book. So she was on Death Row Records at the peak of Death Row, and she has a hit, I would say her hit single is Afro Puffs. I love Afro Puffs. And she's like, I rock rough and stuff on my afro with my Afro Puffs. I love Lady of Rage. She's powerful, and it's on a classic Dr. Dre beat. It's so good. Listen to it. It is West Coast. It's West Coast hip hop. So Afro Puffs was a promotional single from the Above the Rim soundtrack. So it was a standalone single, but it was still a huge hit for her and definitely worth a listen if you want to hear her music and her sound. And so the rest of this discussion in relation to Lady of Rage is about how her experiences on Death Row Records with Dr. Dre in particular actually show the ways in which women found their careers really severely limited by men during the 90s and controlled by men in the 90s. I want to talk about the fact that record labels in the 90s controlled when and how female rap projects dropped, if they dropped at all. And this extract from page 112 from The Mother Lode in relation to Lady of Rage really emphasizes this. For what seemed like centuries, Dr. Dre teased his own long-awaited, never-released studio album Detox till it eventually became folklore. Rage, clearly a lyrical force, needed and desperately wanted direction, but Dre was juggling multiple projects. While it wasn't uncommon for Dre to neglect the artists on his roster, creatively and logistically, producers like him were a necessary lifeline for women like Rage, whose main gateways were men. This was an example of squandered potential. Rage says the release schedule was supposed to go Dre's The Chronic, then Snoop Dogg's album, and then hers. But in the most tragic sequence of events, Dr. Dre left Death Row, Tupac was murdered, Suge Knight got locked up, and Snoop Dogg left the label. So in the midst of the empire crumbling, now Rage, it's your turn. You can get in the studio. Now that my album is being worked on, the conductor, Dre, the visionary, is not there anymore. The person who was going to structure all of this. I'm just in there second guessing, wondering, I'm lost. timelines collided. And while Rage says she happily contributed to her label mates' classic projects, Dre's The Chronic and Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style, she never recorded music for what was supposed to be her debut album, which Dre wanted to title Eargasm. And the last passage is from the very end of Lady of Rage's chapter. Women rappers would sit on label shelves for ages, and of course stagnation is normal in the music industry, but without the overall numbers, it only contributed to the lack. What do we do with them was a recurring issue for women who didn't fit the industry standard mold of a rap star. Many of them started answering the question themselves. So I think the takeaway from Lady of Rage's career is not only do men have control over your career trajectory and progress as a female rapper, but Lady of Rage was a sensational lyricist. I don't think she was necessarily someone who would hide and shy away from the microphone. And this is where I think the first sort of complex way that men have controlled female rappers' careers historically, and perhaps still do, is the fact that for Lady of Rage, it was only when she received the approval of key men in the game that she felt like she'd really been accepted and recognized as an MC. And on page 112 of the Motherlode, there is a story here where Lady of Rage recollects receiving the daps from Notorious B.I.G. So it says here, when Notorious B.I.G. heard Rage on a DJ Premier track and said she was dope, it was like an anointing. When I met Jay-Z and he told me he was a fan, I was like, okay. To be recognized by your female comrades is great, but we're in a male-dominated field, so when they do give you recognition, it's like an extra stamp. So I thought this was interesting, and I wanted to start our historical exploration of men controlling female rappers here, because this isn't too different from Nicki Minaj and her opinion on where the opinion and stamp of men stands when you are creating your art and valuing your art as a female rapper.
People don't rap no more. Most people ain't even trying to spit. You understand what I'm saying? They don't try to spit, they getting by. Everybody is getting by being fraudulent. Everybody's getting by being half-assed. Everybody's getting by like not pushing their pen. Do you know how many times I think to myself, why did I just rewrite this verse? When everything on the radio is a bunch of whack verses. If a film at some point in my rap do the stink face, then it's not cool, like it's not good. Everybody is just, and you know what? The world makes it okay now. You don't even have to be an MC anymore. Like, that's what's crazy.
Yeah, she came up with the dudes and surpassed every other dude, and is now able to stand next to the people she looked up to.
I am not a female rapper. I'm not. And now they've diluted the term female rap. I don't want to be called that.
I always said that like every I heard female.
And so I wanted to link to that clip and actually show that maybe this historical example we've seen of how the opinions of men, and look, it wasn't just Lady of Rage, it was plenty of female rappers in here who did say when they got daps from Biggie, from Jay-Z, that's when they felt like real lyricists. And it's so interesting that Lady of Rage specifically says, respect from your female counterparts is great, but it's not the same thing as when the men in a male-dominated field recognize you. So that's worthwhile thinking about in the context of this conversation. So as well as male opinion controlling female rappers, or at least heavily influencing how they see their own careers, I think another really significant element is the male gaze. And in the 90s, the issue of the male gaze was so much worse than today. Female rappers couldn't win. If you weren't sexual, then yes, men took you more seriously, but you also were denying a part of yourself because, you know, femininity and womanhood people still want to celebrate. But then as soon as you started being sexual, you know, unless you were Lil Kim or Foxy Brown, no one was interested. But it created this horrible place for female rappers where they just didn't know, you know, Do we go all baggy and androgynous like Salt and Pepper and TLC, particularly Left Eye? Or do we embrace our body and our sexuality like Lil Kim and Foxy? And as things started to progress, especially with the impact of Lil Kim, there started to be a requirement for female rappers to be sexy in order to sell. And that's where the next female rapper we're looking at, really, her career is a great highlight of this. And it is Brat. So if you don't know about Brat, you need to get to know about Brat. She is an iconic 90s femc. She was the first female rapper to sell 1 million records or an album with Funkdafied, released in 1997. She was signed under Jermaine Dupri, who is a big hip hop figure, the head of So Def Records or Entertainment. And so just to read a little bit of her career biography, again from our good friend Wikipedia, Shantae Harris, better known by her stage name Brat, is an American rapper and actress. Born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, she began her career in 1992, the year she signed with So Def Records. Her debut album, Funkdafied, I apologize, it was 94, not 97. Funkdafied sold 1 million copies, making her the first solo female rap act to receive a platinum certification and the second overall female act, solo or group, to receive that award after Salt and Pepper. Brat has received 2 Grammy Award nominations. She's achieved 2 top 10 hits on the Billboard Hot 100, Funkdafied and Not Tonight Ladies Night remix. So that is the iconic Ladies Night remix with Lil Kim, Lisa Left Eye Lopez from TLC, Missy Elliott and Angie Martinez. Brat has also had commercial success with other songs, with I Think They Like Me and a remix of Mariah Carey's Lover Boy. So definitely check out Brat, check out Funkdafied for some, I'm telling you, 90s hip hop never misses. I'm just here to tell you that information. 90s hip hop has never missed. So I want to read again from the Motherlode. This is an extract from page 121, the chapter about Brat. And I wanted to read this and then enter into our discussion on the role of the male gaze in hip hop. So I'm going to read you 2 sections from this page. So the first is about when she originally signed under Jermaine Dupri to So Def Records. Dupri was originally reluctant to sign a female rapper because to him they weren't lucrative, but Brat proved to be a secret weapon. Her voice was nasally, her style androgynous, and she could really flow. There are a lot of female rappers, Salt and Pepper, Antoinette, MC Lyte, but this was the first time we'd seen one with braids and the energy she came to the screen with, Dupri said in a 2019 documentary, The Remarkable Rise of So Def. Brat brought success and money to his So Def enterprise, so he's lucky that she came around. Funkdafied became the first album by a female rapper to sell 1 million records, while Eminem, Outkast, and Biggie are among the rappers who sold 10 million records. No female rapper has ever been certified diamond. So this is in relation to her video, What You Like, with Tyrese. Here she was, Brat, in the video, dancing with Tyrese, the model and singer from the Pepsi commercial. Up until now, I've never revealed a titty. For people to see this thuggish, hardcore, foul-mouthed platinum princess in tight clothes, they bugged out, you know, Brat told Vibe in 2000. Assuring her fans, you'll see the braids in the tomboy image. The tomboy image wasn't solely about comfort. It said to fans, voluntarily or not, that women wanted to be taken seriously as a rapper rather than ogled. But sex made for good business. Brat's decision to play against type was almost too obvious bait to fans. Women still had limited options when it came to how they looked, even when they were following the blueprint. Male taste so heavily defined the concept of image in that era for women that simply deciding what to wear as an artist became do or die. I was always told that you want to be fuckable to men and women to sell records, Brat told Variety in 2020 after coming out as gay. Men still run the labels and they probably will forever. So, and if they have to create you, they will. So it's still tough for female MCs, producers and writers if you don't have the support of a major male artist backing you, or if you're not super duper sexy and have some big titties and a nice ass and can twerk. You can't go in there looking tough like I did back in the day and be like, I'm a rapper. They're gonna say, let's get you out of those tomboy clothes and dress you up in a teddy. But that changes who you are, and then your rhymes start changing because you look different. Then you're not so relatable because you're not being yourself anymore. Now you're somebody else. Who are you? And it's really interesting. It's really, really interesting to hear all of that from Brat and show that women in the 90s, women in that era were literally being, their entire career and the projection of their career was judged on how sexually attainable they seemed to men. And honestly, if you look at Lil Kim and Brat, these artists from a similar era, you know, one thing the author of this book, Clover Hope, talks about is that Brat's career, and the quote here says, Brat's catalog is basically an unofficial early marker of before and after Lil Kim. But it's ironic that Brat had a makeover to fit industry standards after already proving that she was financially viable as an artist with her debut album. And then she went back to the baggy clothing later in her career. But it is just crazy to me to think that the rise of a hypersexual woman in hip hop forced a woman that had been doing very well and outsold as an androgynous artist or androgynous presenting artist now had to change because the male gaze dictated that. That's the level of control that women were dealing with in the 90s. And so I think that you link that back to that Nicki Minaj clip we saw at the start of this video, where she says, I have never had men control my image, write my bars. I am who I am, take it or leave it. And you know, this Brat quote on men being essential to your career and that they're always going to control the industry is worthwhile thinking about. Do you guys agree with that? Do you know, if you take Brat's view and Nicki Minaj's view, are these two women coming to the same conclusion in a way? Because Nicki's saying, look, I don't care who doesn't care. I will never have a man do this. That is our historical exploration of, you know, female rappers in the 90s and the challenges they had with men controlling their careers. And I think, like I said, it's the first element that men's opinions have always been the most important thing for female rappers. Then you've got the next element, which is, you know, the male gaze and sexualization and how that controlled female rappers in the 90s. And then we also just talked about overall how labels controlled when and how women dropped, or what they would drop, or how they would sound, or if they had no ghostwriters or not. So it just was a lot. And so now I want to look at Nicki Minaj and how her career challenged these norms for female rappers. So how is it, returning to our first questions, how is it that Nicki the Minaj is still having to argue over the same things that Brat and Lady of Rage were dealing with, you know, 20 years ago? Maybe Brat is right. Are men always going to control the industry? Let's look at the next example and then we're going to conclude and share our thoughts, because we need to look at the impact of the new generation. So has the new generation and Nicki Minaj's impact changed anything, or does Brat's conclusion seem to be what the future holds? Let's get into it. And I want to link to my video on the channel on Nicki Minaj and the female rapper 360 contract, which a lot of these women were in. A lot of these women did not have the agency that Nicki Minaj has, and it shows in the fact that they had to wait but I thought, let's look at Nicki. Let's ask whether Nicki's career has challenged these norms of men controlling women, or has it compounded them? Let's figure it out. So when it comes to men's opinion, as we've seen in the earlier clip, yeah, I think Nicki does care about how men see her as a rapper, but I would caveat and say some men, not all of them. And if we look at Nicki's story where she recollects from her Queen album, which you can see behind me on vinyl, she had a song on there, LLC, and Jay-Z was in the studio, and he told her that he really liked, you know, the second verse, but he wasn't, you know, hot on the first one. And for Nicki, that for her was ultimate. She had to change that, and so she changed it, rewrote it, and sent it back to Jay, and Jay was like, oh, that's crazy, that's hard. And then she felt like the song was ready. So in that way, what Lady of Rage was saying in relation to Notorious B.I.G. and what Nicki was saying in relation to Hove, is this not the same thing? Is Nicki not still holding the opinions of men in higher esteem than other people's opinions? You know, did it matter that she thought it was hard, but only when Jay-Z thought it was hard, she thought it was hard? Perhaps in that way, men still have, the opinion of men still dominates in female hip-hop. However, big however, you guys know I'm a lawyer, so there's always a caveat. Nicki has risked and knowingly risked a lot of disapproval from the culture, which we know is dominated by men, for experimenting with pop sounds and creating that niche of hip hop, which artists like Doja Cat, Ariana have dived into. And in this way, Nicki knowingly sacrificed male approval to push her sound. And so there's two key things that I want to note here. First of all, it's commonly accepted though amongst Nicki's fans that since all the blackballing, the backlash, the bullying, the clowning, Nicki has completely walked back all of the crazy pop sounds, all of the crazy experimentalization. We don't get it anymore. We had a little bit of it on Tusa, or when she collaborates with like, what on earth is her name? Meghan Trainor, what the other girl's called? Little Mix, BTS. If she does a pop collab, yeah, she'll give you pop. But on her own projects, that Nicki Minaj is out of here. She herself has publicly denounced Starships, the same sort of song that got her all of this flack when she was experimenting with pop sounds that, you know, a lot of these hip hop heads, these male hip hop heads clowned her for. Now Nicki says she doesn't like that song. Could it be that this issue of men's opinions is still affecting people, even the biggest and most fiercely vocal about in her independence female rapper we've got? Who knows? But the second thing I wanted to say is that it's not all doom and gloom. Men's opinions in hip hop are not monolith, and that's why perhaps Nicki still doesn't care. And I wanted to use the example of RZA from Wu-Tang Clan. If you don't know Wu-Tang Clan, you have no business saying you like hip hop. You need to go learn the OGs. So RZA is an OG in this hip hop game, and he recently praised Nicki Minaj for her versatility, describing her as the only rapper that he thinks compares to rap legend ODB or Old Dirty Bastard in that sense. And so he says, RZA was so enthralled by Nicki's verse on Monster that it provided the basis for his argument that she is the only solo act in hip-hop to date to channel the energy of his late Wu-Tang Clan associate, Old Dirty Bastard ODB. You know, there's various chambers of the Wu, so I'm looking for who's gonna effing catch the Liquid Swords vibe and bring that back, he said, elaborating on the prerequisites needed to be compared to his Wu-Tang brother. You know what I mean? At one point they thought that Danny Brown had tapped into ODB's vibe, but that's gonna be hard for anyone. The one who came close to ODB as far as everything all at once is Nicki Minaj. He doubled down on this by adding, "I just think her versatility of lyricism and approach is the only comparable energy to what he was doing. Clearly, RZA thinks Nicki's wordplay is elite, and it's clear why he and Kanye have held her in such high regard throughout her time in the limelight." So, perhaps then, in this Nicki Minaj's career, yes, she still retained the importance of male opinions, but she's also knowingly challenged those opinions and walked away from the approval of men for the sake of pursuing her sound. And even though she's less willing to do that, you can still see, like, there are men in hip-hop, there are hip-hop gatekeepers like RZA who do appreciate and value that versatility. So maybe it's not that Nicki Minaj is restricted by male opinions, or that women rappers have ever been restricted by male opinions, but maybe it's that the male opinions themselves needed to develop in order to better appreciate these women and their talent. And I think that's the biggest impact of Nicki's career. I think Nicki has forced men who listen to hip-hop to expand their critical thinking, expand what you think is hot. And I think without Nicki doing that, I think that, yeah, I think women would still be locked in and men would control so much of how female rappers view themselves. But I think now we've had Nicki Minaj, they can be like, bro, I don't care, this sounds good to me. And so, yeah, in that way, I think Nicki has challenged the control men have on the industry. So the second element of this is the role of the male gaze. Like we saw with Brat's career and Lil Kim and her impact, damn, the male gaze and sexuality really has been critical historically to the progression of female rap careers. So how does Nicki Minaj, whose name is literally a play on a menage a trois, challenge this, if at all? So the male gaze was very relevant during Nicki's earliest career stages. She was signed to Dirty Money under Big Fendi. It was actually Big Fendi that decided upon her Nicki Minaj moniker, and like she says in her podcast with him, she actually hated it and she just wanted to use her own name, but it was him that pushed for the sexual branding, the very sexual branding, which later got Nicki Minaj likened to Lil Kim. In fact, when Nicki debuted, she paid homage to Lil Kim's famous squat pose, and she also referred to herself as Minaj because I eat these rap bitches with a nasty flow. So she very much started that sexual heavy branding, but you can tell from Nicki's own words and the drastic turn her aesthetics took at her debut that she didn't want that. And she embraced, in my opinion, more camp and outlandish dressing as she debuted her alter egos, Harajuku Barbie, Roman Zelensky, into the mainstream. And in my opinion, this was a modern emanation of artists like Brat and Missy Elliott's rejection of the male gaze through outlandish and desexualized fashion. So if you actually look at the way Nicki Minaj was dressing at the earliest stages of her careers, she wasn't dressing to be a sexy girl. She was dressing to be theatrical and fun and campy, and yes, of course, she's still beautiful because no amount of chicken chains and beehive wigs is gonna take away from what that woman's face looks like. But I really believe strongly that before 2014, when Nicki really embraced her sexual aesthetic and re-debuted sexy Onika with the black hair for the release of her fourth studio album, The Pink Print, she was very desexualized in the way she dressed. I just don't think you can tell me that that camp fashion era for Nicki Minaj wasn't also a way of her, like Brat said, being taken seriously as an MC, because she said it's not about my body, it's about my bars. And that's what I really think. And when Nicki returned back to hypersexuality, you know, she did it progressively. I would say now she's back on her hypersexual Barbie look, which you can see from like the Trolls video. You can see that from I'm trying to think of other videos where you really see in 2017, especially with Rake It Up, the You the Baddest with The Future, she really brought back Barbie, and she like brought it back in a bigger way. And you can see her entire generation of offspring have completely taken on this Barbie aesthetic. So I think when you look at how Nicki's own career, how her aesthetic has changed. At the start of her career, it was rap respect she was after, so she didn't dress very sexually. And then once she was on her 4th studio album and she, you know, went back to doing things for her, we saw her lose the campness and go natural. And then once she'd moved on from that era and she was at, you know, the peak of her career, you know, the most powerful, the richest, you know, the biggest she's been so far, then the same hypersexual Barbie we saw at the beginning is now back even bigger than before, but in a way that no one can control her or stop her for. And I think that shows that I do think Nicki did challenge the male gaze and the relevance of the male gaze. To what extent that is, look, we can have a whole other conversation, but I think that she did challenge it. So in that way, yeah, I think Nicki did challenge the norms of men's gaze controlling female rappers, at least historically. Okay, so we've taken a really good look at historically how female rappers have been controlled by men. We've looked at Nicki Minaj and how her career challenged and decentralized these things. So as a sort of look to the future, I thought we can now look at the current female rap generation. Have these issues, you know, that we've identified, you know, men controlling you, men controlling, the men's gaze controlling you, you know, all of this stuff, does it still impact them? So the first thing we should look at is in terms of women controlling the content of their own material. Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like Nicki Minaj's impact, whilst it's still relevant, look at the name of this platform. Ghostwriters are still sadly a very important part of the most prominent female rappers of 2021. You've got Cardi B with credited ghostwriters. She's regularly said that she's had ghostwriters. She's now come out and tried to say that she is writing her bars, but at this point, you know, she profited off of a new era in hip hop where ghostwriting didn't carry the same shame that it did back in the 90s. Her ghostwriter Partisan Fontaine is currently dating Megan Thee Stallion, another new prominent female rapper who has also had his name credited as a writer on her songs after starting her career very explicitly saying that she wanted to write her own raps. So where do we go from here? They're joined by other rappers like Dream Doll, who's regularly been known to have ghostwriters, and ghostwriting seems to be a real big issue. And it's beyond just writing lyrics. Rappers are getting full-on rap reference tracks with the verse, the flow switches, everything pre-made and delivered like Amazon Prime subscribe and save. You know, so unfortunately, yeah, that element is there. But these new female rappers don't care about what men think though. And that maybe that is progress. If you look at WAP, and that was the collaboration with Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion, and all of the controversy and backlash behind that, you can see both of them said, we don't care if you don't like the content of our songs. We don't care if you think I rap about too much of this or too much of that. However, in my opinion, I think this is less because they are so confident in their bars and how they're pushing the art of rap, and it's more because their focus is clout, social media, and money. And the reason they don't care is because they're getting paid. The second the world wants more from them, you'll see, like with Cardi. Now Cardi wants the world to think that she's a writer. Why? Because the market is changing. The demand is changing. We've all been living in a pandemic. We don't want superficial stuff all the time. We want some real stuff. And so you can see, do the girls not care because they believe in the quality of their art, like Nicki Minaj? Or do the girls not care because it's not hip-hop respects that they're after? So why would they care what men think? It's money and clout. And money and clout doesn't care whether or not you wrote the bars. So have we made progress in that way? I don't know, jury's out for me, but I'd love to know what you guys think. So the next thing we should look at with the new girls is the male gaze. So returning back to the WAP controversy, you know, it was claimed that this kind of pussy rap empowers women. And this is also what Nicki Minaj said with, I would say, the song that made it possible for WAP to have the impact it did, Anaconda. Yes, the kids might remember Anaconda from 2014. Nicki literally broke the world and the internet by having a song celebrating big bums. And you know, having people shaking ass and everything. And now we're at a time where we've got WAP, and it's just like taking Anaconda and that impact and just put it on steroids, and it's on a whole other level. And if you compare WAP against the artists of the 90s, so like Charlie Baltimore, Brat, where women didn't actually have a choice over making sexualized content, and looking at Nicki Minaj and how she very cleverly restricted and then opened her sexuality in light of how she wanted to control her image and appearance, it does make sense that this new female rap generation has pushed sexuality to the absolute forefront of their brands. But has this necessarily dislodged the male gaze or challenged it? I don't know. And I'm apt to think that perhaps the new generation of female rappers has slightly missed the point here, and misunderstood the relevance of Nicki's hypersexuality and the historical relevance of Lil Kim's hypersexuality and Foxy's hypersexuality and Brat's hypersexuality, and contrasted that against Missy Elliott's androgyny and Brat's androgyny, and left. I just don't think that a lot of people have deeped that the prize isn't men's attention. The prize is rap respect. And if you get respect from how you command men's attention and lyrically deliver, that's something else entirely than just getting men's attention for ass. But that's a whole separate conversation. I personally don't think I can conclude conclusively on whether the male gaze issue has developed or regressed with the new female rap generation, but drop me your comments and let me know. And finally, the last element, men controlling how, when female rappers drop and what they drop. Is this still a problem? Now, I talked about the ghostwriter issue. A lot of these new girls are in 360 contracts. Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B were notably in very terrible contracts. Megan Thee Stallion's was awful with her first record label, first deal she signed. And I also talked earlier in the video about Saweetie and her complaints about the Best Friend video. I also think it's worthwhile looking at artists like Cupcake and Malibu Mitch, because increasingly female rappers are leaving their deals and fighting their labels to go independent. So does this mean that modern female rappers can only control their careers when they're free from all label influences? And if that's the case, you can only really control your career as an independent female rapper. That reminds me of Brat's comments that men are always going to control the industry. So what is this? A rock and a hard place for female rappers. Either be signed and end up having to do like a 360 situation, end up, you know, in a situation like Megan or Cardi, where you're making hits, but you're making hits for the label, you're not making hits for yourself. Or do you go independent and lose all of that infrastructure and support that rappers like Brat have assured are essential for your career development as a female rapper? Damn, it's hard. Like, and I do not at all want to say that I have the answers and think that this is easy for women in hip hop. I think this video has shown us, if anything, just how damn difficult it is for women in hip hop to catch a break and just control their career and blow up. Like, men get to do it so easily, but with women you have to consider everything down to, you know, how sexy do I look? It's just deep. So I would say in that way, I don't know, I can't make a conclusion, but I can say that there's equal evidence that women are in a better place, but there's equal evidence that women in the new generation are in the same place, if not worse. So to conclude, do men control female rap? I think that men do continue to have an important role in female rap careers, and that historical examples of the 90s show just how deep that role can go. But I also believe that Nicki Minaj's career did show that women don't need men to control their lyrics or their image or their brand. And since Nicki Minaj, many more women have been inspired to pursue rap and be a mogul along with it. And more female rappers own their own publishing, are in their own brands, have their own brands. You know, you've got Saweetie with her Icy Girl brand, you've got Asian Doll with the Doll Store. You know, it's clear that the idea of a man guiding your career is no longer the only route into rap. However, there are still legitimate questions over whether the new generation of female rappers are really as independent and in control as they want us to believe. So does that mean that Brat's comments that female rappers will always have to kowtow to the fact that this is a male-dominated industry and men call the shots? Is that true? And is that going to be the truth? Comment your thoughts. Let me know. Do you still think men control female rap? Do you agree with Brat? Like, comment, and subscribe to No Ghostwriter. Make sure that you leave that comment and like this video. Subscribe. Put those post notifications on so you don't miss us. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. It's no_ghostwriter or No Ghostwriter. And make sure that you check out noghostwriter.com for hot new hip hop articles every Friday. And if you're trying to be elite, if you're trying to take your appreciation of bars, of lyrics to the next level, then make sure that you check out the No Ghostwriter Patreon, and I'd love to see you on one of them and supporting us and helping us develop and go further. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm Blessed in Makosha. Deuces, and I'll see you in the next upload. Bye!